There we go. So today I'm going to demonstrate how to animate a pixel art character, and I've chosen these fancy ones. I've done a couple of things behind the scenes already, such as figuring out a square power of 2 size for the sprite. That's an important thing to do. I think I talk about it in one of the videos because you want to optimize your pixel art and lay it out into a sprite sheet eventually. So this big box, I'm going to try not to animate anything exiting this big box, and that includes the pink edge. The pink edge is the very last pixel of the box. And if I were going to animate the little guy, I would do the same thing. These are all at least a multiple of 8, if not a power of 2 size. I think there's a little thing down here that will say when I select. So this one's 48 by 48. So not a power of 2, but it is a multiple of 8. And so that's fine, as long as it's square. This one, let's see what I made this one. It says... Oh, that's weird. It says 20. I think I started from the wrong corner. It was saying 23, 24. 24 by 24. So again, not a power of 2, but it is a multiple of 8. So powers of 2 would be 8, 16, 32, 64, etc. But we try to keep these as standardized as possible because the world would be made up of tiles that would all be some certain size, and if we don't do that, then they're going to float off the ground or clip through the ceiling or bump into walls and stuff like that. It's a little bit like a collision box, but it's more like a area where we can draw as opposed to an area where we can't draw. The collision box would be a lot smaller on these guys, more like that. But this is sort of like we want to have one standardized size for our graphics so that we can predict where the maximum size of an animation is going to finally land, so we can plan things like collision boxes. And it's really because the way that you use pixel art in a game engine is just by swapping out pictures rapidly. Okay, so let's try to start with this guy. I'm going to make a new layer on top. And I already have all of this created, so I could just copy paste it, but I'm actually going to need to put them together one piece at a time because there's lots of parts of this guy that need to move slightly separately. So I'm just going to get let's just do like a bright red color to indicate. When this guy is walking, I'm first going to try to establish a passing position. Where is that thing? There it is. A contact position, because as you can see, the arms swing back and forth, the legs open and close as we're walking. A contact position is a good standardized one. You can actually put this arm swing on the contact as well, and then it's definitely the biggest. And it's the one that's a little bit more complicated because it requires that I do diagonal things, and pixels don't like to do diagonal things very easily, as you know. So I may have to reach straight out like this with the leg. I may have to figure out some sort of pattern like this. I may have to come over and then come down with the leg. I'm not sure until I start to pose it, but we're going to do that one first because it tends to entail a lot of the problem solving. But when you first do your design is essentially already a passing position, almost. Okay, this neutral stance. The only difference being that the legs are apart side by side as opposed to being overlapping together. So in a typical passing pose, one of your legs, the supporting leg, is going to be in the middle, and the other one is kind of doing this number 4 kind of pattern like that because it's bending and it's heading forward. So it's very, very similar to this neutral pose, but not exactly. Okay. So I'm going to try to do this contact pose, and I want to think, what do I want to move on this guy? I'm going to animate the big guy because I think he's a little bit more fun. I could draw the entire body, including arms and head, as one piece and only animate the legs, but that would be pretty stiff and strange. Like, imagine someone marching along the street with their arms held stiffly at their sides, not moving at all, and their head not bobbing with their body. It would be as if they were a robot or something. It'd be very strange. So I'm going to try to fill in a sort of body shape. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. There we go. I'm going to try to fill in a body shape that does not include this front arm. Then I'm going to illustrate this front arm separate on top of that so I can move it around and change its position. I'll do the same thing with the back arm, filling in about this much so that it can socket in behind this guy. And then finally, I'll separate the head from the rest of the body so that I could bob it up and down or sway it left and right or something. And then if I want to do anything extra, I'll just change the drawing on individual frames. So for instance, if I want the hat to flop up and down, What I could do is draw the skull underneath this hat and then the hat on a new layer, but that ends up being probably too many layers. Instead, I could just change the drawing just on that one frame, or if I wanted the hat brim to bend a little bit, then I could do something like this on just like 1 or 2 frames and then have it settle back down, maybe overshoot slightly like this when it comes to rest, and that would be with the primary rim still filled in. Okay. So that's the plan. I'm going to go ahead and start with that. And although I could use all of the colors available here, instead I'm going to use one color for each of these pieces because it's going to be a lot easier to track visually as I'm doing my first rough pass. So for the primary body form, and I can't quite see where his legs are. Oh, this entire thing is leg. Okay. So for his body, I'm going to start with the belt here and just fill in the outside. So I want to not include the back arm because that's going to be a separate thing. Now I don't quite know where I need to go here, but I can figure it out. So we'll trace down. Oh, and remember I want to fill in this without this back arm. So I probably need to do something a little bit more like that maybe. Or let's just do this. We'll give him a slight hunched back like that. So that means my belt can be here. Does that line up? Not really. I think that I have to move it over just a little bit. It's got a little bit of a lumbar in his back like that. And so this would be his whole belt size. His legs, I can't really see, but if I assume that leg just kind of goes straight up and maybe back just a little bit to supply a butt, that's about right. We've got one little overhang for his belt. So that'll be good. I'm going to leave the legs on a different layer though because they're going to change shape the most. And then for this part, mostly it's just going to be covered up by the head, but I want to at least try to shape his torso something reasonable, something like that. And I'm going to fill that in. So we're going to have this solid red shape that I can move around with my hand tool, which will make it easy to bob it up and down or sway it left and right or something like that. For the most part with pixel art, you don't have to draw every single frame of everything, but you do have to be mindful of what's moving and what's not. If something holds still for too long or moves together, it looks unnatural, but if you were to redraw this every single frame, the details are going to flash and sparkle around so much that we won't be able to keep track of anything, and that would also be a bad thing. Okay, so I'm just going to double check, see if I did everything. So they have the t-shirt kind of sticking out in the front here on the belt side. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to have it do something like this. I think that's probably fine. Doesn't really matter. We're not going to see this, but I just want to put a little tiny bit of detail in there. We'll do something like that. Okay, so that's the body. I'm going to actually name this layer as well. If you just double click on the word of the layer. Layer 1 is the original. This one is going to be my body layer that I'm moving around. And I'm going to make another layer to draw this arm. I may have to turn off the transparency of these layers as I make them one by one, just so it's easier to do the next piece. So for this front arm, let's pick a yellow. Okay, and I'm going to check to make sure. So this is sleeve right here. So basically right where the flesh ends, and then it takes one little step up here. Okay, so right here, and then there essentially, and then it's just kind of an arm socket like that. So I'm going to tend to fill in the outside first, and then just use the bucket to fill in the rest. For this one, since the arm has a sleeve and it has flesh, I'm going to actually do this and then fill in the flesh part with a slightly different color. Or let's fill in both with a slightly different color. We'll lighten both of them like that, because I want to be able to tell the difference between sleeve and skin in this case. That looks about right to me. The only thing I got to watch out for is if I bob this arm left and right, it might smack into the neck and head area, and I don't want that to happen. Okay, so we'll say this is front arm, and we'll go ahead and do the back arm. I guess they could be the same color because they're really far away. They're never going to cross over. But I prefer to make them different colors. So I'm going to use a blue for this one. Now he's got an object in his hand. I could take it out of his hand, or I could just include it. In this case, I think I'm just going to include it. Gives him something to do. And I think that's the stick back here between the legs over here. I'm going to have to watch out for that part. Alright, so we've got this. Now I'm going to have to guess where this goes behind the body a little bit, because it's going to be covered over by what I already illustrated. But given how wide this one is, I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide at the wrist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide at the wrist would probably be fine. It is the arm that is further away, so I could make it like 1 pixel thinner, something like that. Then we've got a little bit of a outward bulge for the fist portion, kind of like that. And then I can just fill the rest in. And I want to be as similar to the other arm as I can in shape without really needing to detail the socket part too much. So something like this I think will be okay. So now pick a lighter color, and I'm going to fill this in. And I'm going to fill in the stick, and I'll fill the stick in with just light color because then I can tell the difference. Whoops, too far. What you're going to want to avoid when you're animating something is filling in all the detail right away. If you fill in all the detail right away, it's going to be very hard to repose things. It's going to be really hard to put it in a slightly different position, chop it up, and figure out what the diagonal angles are going to be. It's better to deal with just single colors like this. So that's about where I'd want that to be. Feel like, yeah, I think that's fine. Let's call this back arm. And now another, I'm going to turn, yeah, I think both of these off for the moment. And I'm just turning the alpha with the little letter A to 0. So now I can see the head. I'm not going to include the neck portion of the head because the head is the only thing that needs to be moving up and down. The neck doesn't need to move. The neck is just a socket. So here's the flesh of his head, just like that. And the hat brim, I think I can just do this all with a single color. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think I did. I can just do this all with a single color because it's pretty uncomplicated. Just a silhouette with a little bit of jaw shape on there. There we go. So, you know what, I'll fill in the face with a different color. Why not? Doesn't really require that, but there we go. Okay. And then eventually when we animate it, we might want to move facial features around, like the nose back and forth on the face if we wanted to give more dimension, but I don't really see that as being necessary just yet. Okay, so his ear is in line with his head. I was looking at the little guy, his ear sticks out, jaw sticks out, big tooth, and then all of this is neck, so we don't have to deal with that. But what we might want to do, I'm going to go to the body layer, and I'm going to pick a slightly lighter red so I can fill in the neck area. Let me just erase out, because I do want to know where the neck is. Okay, so there it is. So that if I am bobbing the head back and forth, then I can hit that spot. There we go. And now I'll just fill in the rest with this red. There we go. So if I start moving the head around, because I'm going to turn off this layer eventually, but right now it's at 0 alpha. If I'm going to move this head around, I want to know where its resting position is. You know, this is way too much, almost certainly, but you might bob around in a circle, you might bob back and forth like this, you might just go up and down, right? You might go just a little bit forward and back. There's lots of different motion patterns that we could pick. So there's the head. Arm, head, body, the stick is included. Last thing would be the legs, the one that we're going to probably do the most work on. in order, the legs have to be in front of the back arm. So we can actually arrange these. I'm going to move this down, this back arm, to behind the body. And let's turn the opacity back up so I can see that. Yep, okay. Turn that back down so I can trace the legs out for the first time. I want the head to be in front of everything, the front arm to be in front of the body, back arm to be in front of that, and then the legs have to be in front of the backhand only. Okay, so right here. Legs. Alright, so let's trace out the legs. What colors have I been using? I've got red, yellow, purple, cyan. So I could do what? Blue? How about green? So legs is another thing. I may want to keep track of the left and right legs separately. Usually I do red, green for that, but I can also just kind of put a little dot way down here under the respective foot to remember which is which. So I could put a little green dot and a little red dot, and then just fill in the legs with whatever I want. Let's use black. How about? So that'll make it really easy to see. Wait, back arm. There we go. Am I on the wrong? Well, I am on the wrong layer, aren't I? Let's erase out that. Did I make a new layer or not? I guess I didn't. There we go. Okay, so, oh no, I did. I named it. It's right here. I was just not on it. Okay, so I'm going to fill in black, and then I'll do a little red and green dot to keep track of which leg is which. Okay, got to carefully, here, crotch is there, knees or pants or whatever that is. And then I'll assume that this kind of goes straight up, and then that maybe there's a little butt or something like that. We'll see how that looks with everything filled in. So now I'm also going to put a little red dot for this side and a green dot for this side, just to keep track of which leg is which. Alright, let's turn everything back on now. And the head is on. Okay. So up here in the preview window, this is where we can see what's actually happening so far. Let me open that nice and big. So we can still kind of see the original drawing behind the stuff that I've put in, and everything looks like it's filled in and I'm not missing anything, so that's good. I'm going to take this window and stick it off to the left here, because I like to have a nice large preview that I can refer to, but you guys can still see this little preview up in the upper right hand corner. Any questions about why I'm setting things up this way or what I'm doing so far? I'm going to make just one more layer called ground, put this pink line on it so that I can turn off the background, and I'm going to put the pink box in there too, so now I can turn off the background entirely. Not just to identify the limbs, but to be able to move them separately. So now if I go through, I could move my head shape, I could move the rear arm and redraw it whenever I want to. I could move the body, all that good stuff. One more thing with the body I'm just a little unhappy with. I want to see the belt. So this is the belt, and the rest of that's the shirt. Okay. Salvo's got a question. Go for it. Can layer move up or down like Photoshop? we can reorder layers if that's what you're referring to. So if I think this will get covered over, but if I take this head layer and I hit this down arrow, now the head is behind the body and the arms, which isn't what we want. And so I'll move it back up. Yeah, I thought it would get covered over. Where'd it go? There it is. So if that's what you meant, yeah, we can reorder them. And we can also slide them around the screen like up, down, left, and right to animate something. Okay, so we need a contact position. The contact position, if we look here, is a medium kind of height position of the body where the legs are spread apart. The front leg is first hitting the ground before it's caught. So if we're only going to do two poses, contact and passing, this would be the lower of those two poses. Passing positions where you've got one straight leg, almost like normal, and one passing. So this is more akin to a passing position right now that we've got the body in. You really do need to have up and down on the body to make it feel like it's walking. Otherwise, the character just feels like they're sliding or roller skating. So for this very first pose, I'm going to lower the body just a little bit, maybe even just 1 pixel, maybe 2. We'll see. I'll try just 1 for now, and then to redraw the legs. And we're going to take the head and drop it that same 1 pixel. We're going to take both the arms and drop them 1 pixel. Okay, so body, front and back arms. Legs I'm not going to move, I'm going to redraw them. Okay? So grab this, sample the color. Whichever leg you want to start with being forward, it's kind of up to you, but since this one is already in the front, that would be his right leg. I'm going to go ahead and just use that. And so he's got these weird kind of pants with like a large kind of hip area. The first thing I'm going to do, that's where his foot was. I'm going to try to get some distance out here, like maybe here, and see if that's going to be okay. I think a little farther. Let's go 1 more. Do something like that. Okay, so that kind of looks like an animal leg right now, but I think it'll do based on the design of this guy. And then the opposite leg, I'm actually pretty happy with where it is right now. That one would be reaching backward, but I don't think we need to reach much farther back than it already is. Could do this. So it's just got a little tiny bit more reach. Alright, we'll do that. We'll have just that tiny extra little pixel back there. Just so it's different from that standard pose that we've got. Alright, so I'm going to add a frame. And now that thing starts flashing and looks really obnoxious. So what's happening here? You sometimes need to clone the contents of other frames onto new frames when you make them. So if I go to the head layer, it seems to think the head layer is like invisible right now, which it's not. So I might need to just like clone current layer to all frames. Am I on the wrong one? I was on the wrong one. Let's go to that one. Clone current layer to all frames. There we go. And I'm going to go through each of them. Clone, 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 clone. Okay, so now it stopped doing that. I'm not sure why the default wasn't to clone. I just hit the add new frame button. Let me just check my preferences to make sure. Well, that's pretty weird. I thought the default was to clone what you currently had. Maybe it's not, and it just starts blank each time. So that could be a little bit annoying, but there we are. We're back to normal. So back to the legs layer. This first frame is the contact. This second frame now is going to be my passing position. So formerly that leg was here, so it's got to be something like here at this point. So I'm going to put a little dot there and just kind of redraw the whole thing. Okay. So our belt is overhanging and we've got these big knees, these big weird knees. Maybe something like that. Now this back leg, which was currently over here, this one has to pass now forward. So it's got to kind of like float in midair, and this can be a really weird one. With this guy in particular, there's just not any space to show very much detail. So I think it's just going to kind of look like a weird jumbly mass or something. But I could like try to trail it back like that to get a little bit of something extra. So now looking up here, it looks very funny. That's what it looks like right now, like a scurry or something. And we've got these little dots bouncing around because I'm using them for measurement. So let me get rid of those dots. Okay, and the red and green are not really doing anything for me, but I'll try to keep them consistent. Okay, so the front leg now would be there. The back leg, come on, would be there. Okay, so now, oh, I have the wrong thing selected for eraser. There we go. Erase, erase. Okay, so now, let's see. We've got this kind of scurry happening, and it's fine, I guess. I may have to turn off that arm, actually, because it's getting in the way a lot of seeing what I'm doing. So I'm going to turn that off. It did not seem to care. Hey, front arm, I turned you off. Where are you still visible? Oh, it's not visible in the preview. There we go. Oh, there we are. Okay. So I know it kind of looks like a mess, but that is often how this goes at first. Just trying to decide if I want to fill this in just a little bit more solidly. We don't really have colors, I don't think, for the left and right of the pants. I can bring up the original image on my other screen as well to refer to. You can see it's teeny tiny. But yeah, it's really, they're just kind of like black filled in pants. We can't really see the difference there. Or if I turn on layer 1, we can go look at that. Ooh, that's awful. Ugh. Okay, I'm not going to leave it like that. I guess I could open it in a different screen or something, but yeah. Okay, so let's keep that on 0. Alright, so we'll just do our best then. So we've got red foot, which is the left foot stepping forward, green foot reaching back, and then we've got them both together. So now, I'm going to clone frame 1. Okay, duplicate this frame, and I'm going to move it to position 4, because now this position 4, this is going to be the opposite contact. So that means the green leg needs to reach forward. Okay, so we go from here to the opposite. Now the difference, you might be thinking like, well, what's the difference? Like, we don't have to do anything different. There's a sort of perspective here where if I just grab green real fast, if I want green to reach back, it kind of does this, and if I want red to reach forward, it kind of does this. But if I want the opposite, then red is going to have to do this, or sorry, green, excuse me, green is going to have to kind of do this, and red's going to do this, and they kind of cross over. So that's what we're going to try to get in this very small little shaping. Okay, it's kind of crossing them over. Alright, so on this contact then, I'm going to pick and say green started here in the passing, and it's probably only going to reach to about there forward. And for red, I'm going to say red's going to reach back to about there. So we're going to have a leg like this, filling in this space, get rid of most of that, and then this one reaching forward like this. So there should be quite a lot of knee reaching forward. Get rid of this. Something like that, maybe? Tough to tell. Oh, you know what? I just did this all in frame 1. Well, okay. Frame 1 is now green reaching forward. Just needed to do it on one of them, but I've reversed it now by accident. So just got to remember that. Green is now the one reaching forward. So maybe something like this. And you can see with these little chubby legs, it's like, it's pretty hard to tell what's going on. And so you may have to start getting creative about it to reinterpret the shape of things. So when this is spread out, he's got like a 1 pixel butt because that's his belt right there. He should really have more than 1 pixel for his butt. passing position, okay, same thing, because I slid everything down. There's his butt right there. This would be legs together-ish, sort of passing. Make sure there, okay. And now this is the one. This is the one I'm currently working on. So it's the opposite leg reaching forward. So it's almost like reaching across this direction. I may have to make it not reach even that far, something like this. But then it starts to look very, very strange. We'll try this. Okay. So one thing I neglected to do that I just realized is that on this passing position, and you can see right now it looks pretty much like garbage. On this passing position though, I never moved his body back up that one frame, and we need that. So on this passing position then, frame 2, I'm going to go to the other layers and just pop them up 1 pixel. So body, rise up a little, front arm, head, back arm. Oop, don't want to move it too much. And hey, look at that. Suddenly it looks like he's walking quickly. Okay, now there's a gap between his pants because I need to fill that detail back in, but it's starting to work. Also, the frame rate is controllable right here. We probably need to turn it down to 6 or 8 because we have very few frames right now, and that starts to soften it a little bit as well. Alright, so let's take a look at the legs on that passing position now, because now I can fill in an extra layer here. Okay, so I can reduce a little bit of the butt size. So green is the right hip reaching forward, coming back. So at this point, like, it should really be a lot more bent. It's as if it's bending this way. Okay. We'll just leave it like that. And then this one is the left leg, and it is now coming forward kind of in midair. So we might want to do this instead. Yeah, you know what? I got to get really creative with this because it's just such a mishmash down there. I have to kind of lift it off the ground like that in order to separate it enough to be seen. So we'll try that, separating it out that way. Okay, green forward, green passing, green back. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate the passing position and make it position 4. Let me double check that I did that correctly. Green, back, back. Okay, so now red is going to be the passing position leg, as in the one that's supporting on the ground. They don't have to be in the same spot either as they were last time. Like, for instance, I think I'll support red somewhere around here, and then green is passing forward, which means I'm going to have green up in the air somehow, maybe like this or something. So let's see. This is going to be more similar to the original pose when he was standing still, so this really crazy weird knee. I think I can leave green a little further back than that. Something like that, and I kind of have to. Let's see how this looks now. There's a really big gap opening up on just one single frame, which is weird. That one. Okay, yeah. That's a bit strange. Something like that I think might work better for that front leg. Okay, so now he's down, up on passing, down, up on passing. Okay. He's dancing, yeah. So there's some parts of this I don't like. For instance, when he moves, there's this kind of dragging pixel that doesn't quite adjust right away, which is kind of catching my eye. Because this is just a black silhouette, we're also really aware when we see through it to the hand on the opposite side. So there are some things that are a bit weird. Also, his butt appears to be growing and shrinking as he's bouncing up and down. So let me take a quick look there. So we can't have a 1 pixel butt. Right? We gotta have a 2 pixel butt, otherwise it looks really weird. Something like that. There it is, up 2 pixels, down 2 pixels, up 2 pixels. Okay. I keep seeing the shadow of it on the other frames. Okay, and then there's this single frame that was dragging here. So here's down, up, and it moved. Good. Down, up, and it's moved. Okay, so I think I fixed that now. But there's still one here doing the same sort of thing. Yeah, that one was doing the same sort of thing. But in that case, I don't think it can be helped because I do kind of need that shape. What I could do is that, like soften this entire front because he's reaching back with that foot. It doesn't look that bad. Okay. So I'm fairly happy with those legs. These are really challenging legs to pose because they're incredibly stylistic. They've got some very strange kind of anatomy in that there's sort of this jodhpurs pants kind of thing going on with these very thin single pixel feet. But depending on the design that you pick, this can sometimes be much, much easier or much harder. Just for a point of comparison, look at these 12 sprites and now pay attention to what their feet actually look like. This guy would be easy to pose but bad to look good because he's got these separate legs with clearly defined boots. This guy would be a nightmare to pose because I have no idea where his legs and feet begin and end. We can see where his waist detail is, but that is a giant leg. This guy was fairly easy when I did my example last time. The Shovel Knight one I think would be fairly easy. The Sword and Sorcery guy has some of the problems I'm encountering in that they're single pixel legs, but they're also way longer, so they're going to be easy to get into position, hard to shape. And then this Flint Hook one seems like it would be okay, maybe a little bit of trouble, but not too hard. Okay, so you want to think about this stuff when you start doing your project, how you're going to accomplish everything. You can see some examples here of how they're posing various different shaped body parts. And then I've got one here where I liked this 2 pixel wide kind of leg solution and where all the angles go and the details go that help it out. Okay. So that was an entire pass on the legs and on the basic body. Do we have any questions yet? I'll take that as a no. Let's try to give this a little bit more life before I do any more posing by moving these body parts around. That's yes, you have a question? I think he does. Okay, go for it. Question retracted? It doesn't even have to be one that I provided. You can, and no, I don't really want you to trace the animation. So it's not that it's tracing, it's that these characters don't have animation on them right now. You could animate them. And what I picked was just a picture of a character that was royalty free and provided by someone, and it was not animated either. So I'm the one doing the animation. I want you to do the animation. If you want to use an existing character like Sonic or Mario or something, that's okay, but if all you're doing is meticulously tracing out someone else's animation, then you're not really thinking about the problem solving and learning very much. Okay? It's a good question.
Do you want it to be fully rendered or just about how
Oh, I want it to be fully rendered and pretty. Absolutely fully rendered and pretty. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of those just so I can see. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, you can pick Mega Man, but don't just copy every frame of an existing Mega Man animation. Alright, so let's go ahead and give this a little bit more life before I animate anything else by moving the body parts around. I'm going to add the front arm back in. Okay. And so what I want to do, if you look at this guy walking, there's no rotation, there's no separation between the body parts, so it looks like he's a big bulky robot, but he should be a little bit more flexible than this. So one thing I can do is delay the head up and down a little bit, or delay the shoulders up and down a little bit, and that will cause them to feel like they have a little bit more mass. So here's the thing. I'm going to go to a certain layer and look at what direction is the body moving. So in this one, I don't know yet. In this one, he just moved up. So I want to move the arm down one frame so that it's in the position it would have been on the last frame. Then I'm going to go forward again to number 3. The body just moved down, so I want to move this up. And on number 4, the body moved up, so I want to move it down. And if I go back to 1, this would be like looping it. The body moved down, so I want to move this up. Okay? So look at the effect we get here. Okay? It's a little bit primitive right now. It's not really, super satisfying. But there's a kind of interest there, like he's shrugging his shoulders. Yeah, he's kind of like shrugging his shoulders and like grooving with music or something like that. Let's try it with all 3 parts to see if it helps, though. We'll go to the back arm and do the same thing. So wherever that one went, so this one needs to go down, so we'll move it down also. This one, it went up, so we'll move it up also. This one was up as well, and this one was down. Okay. Interesting, right? Maybe looking a little bit familiar from like retro style games or something, but maybe not super well thought out. Okay. We could do this with the head, but for now, let's look at what we're actually doing with the arms to determine if we want to keep doing it. Let's go to the front arm. Here's that yellow arm, right? This is the pixel that it's on, and if I move, we actually went down 1 pixel while the body rose up 1 pixel, so it's like it moved 2 total. Okay? And then on this one, while the body moves down, I moved it up, so it's like it moved 2 total. So there's actually a lot of displacement on this arm compared to the body. It's moving 2 pixels up and down compared to the body, whereas on screen it's only moving 1 pixel up and down. That could be part of it, and if we added those up and down poses, we might get some added flexibility from that. But the point is, what I could do is just not do that 1 frame or 2 frames. So I could shrug it sometimes, but not all the time, and see if that helps. So this front one, we've got the leg that's on this side is reaching forward, and now it's back, and now it's all the way back. When it's all the way back, maybe I don't want to shrug this as much. So I'm going to move it down 1, just on that 1 frame. But now you see what happens. It appears to freeze for like 2 frames. That's not good. That's because on this very next frame, it's in the same position as it was last time. So not as good. Maybe I should move this one down even further. Look at that. Now it's slowly moving up and down in a smooth way. That's kind of cool. Okay, so where is it going? It's all the way up. Now it moved down 1 pixel. Now it moved down 1 pixel again. Now it rose 1. And on this one, it's at the top again. So I've inadvertently created a nice smooth cycle of animation. So that's neat. Let's try the same thing with the other one then. So in this one they're up, down by 1. This one, for the back arm, I want to move it down by an additional, and on this one I'm going to move it up by 1. I think I did something wrong because it's not quite moving the same. See if we can figure it out. This one needs to go up. Okay, so now that back arm is like raising up and slamming back down over and over again. It moved 2 there, so let's bring it up by 1. Okay, there we go. Got it. So now it's a nice slow, smooth shrug as opposed to this kind of bouncy thing. So that's neat. Maybe that's what we want. Maybe that raising up and slamming down was what we want. But it is a lot smoother and easier on the eyes. Okay. So let's try to add this onto the head and see if it's satisfying. Okay, so for the head, start on frame 1. The arms moved down on frame 2 because the body moved up. So let's move our head down by 1. Now the body moved down, the head could stay put, or it could raise up by 1. Let's raise it up by 1. Body comes back, head could drop down 1. Body went back down, head could raise up 1. So that's kind of interesting. I've got this bobbing head, this very active head, and this very slow moving body and arms, and I kind of like that. I like how active that head is. It gives it a little life and personality. It's a bit odd because it keeps like flashing on and off down here, and maybe I can soften that with just like a single pixel move, but what I don't really want is it locking itself to those arms this whole time. Let me show you what that would look like. So keep an eye on the brim of the hat here. Same, moved out of place, so I'm going to move it back down to where it lines up with that arm, and it's lined up with the arm. So watch this. Doesn't it feel now like the head is attached to the arms and not the body? That's the problem. If you don't offset things enough, then they feel like they're locked together somehow, and that can be a very bad feeling. Okay, so instead of that, what I had was probably better. Let's see. It was where this one went up on that frame instead. Up, down, up, down, up. Yeah, I'm okay with that. It's just having a much faster kind of bobbing up and down. Alright, one more thing I can do before I animate anything else is I can move these arms side to side also. The reason you might do that is because when you're actually walking, and we should probably look at this, when you're actually walking, your hips are swiveling forward and backward as you reach, and your shoulders are doing the opposite, and we call that contrapposto in figure drawing, or you can just think about keeping your balance. You swing this arm back because this leg is swinging forward so that you don't tip over. So the top of the body kind of opposes the bottom of the body. So what we could do is try to get that in here just by sliding these forward and backward. If I remember, this very first frame, the red leg, as in the right hand leg, is reaching forward. That means this arm could reach back a little bit. So I'm going to just push it back 1 frame. On this one, we're passing position, it's in the middle, so I'll go ahead and leave it in the middle. On this one, the opposite leg is reaching, so I could move it forward a frame, and here we're back in the middle again. So we'll see if that works. Interesting. It's kind of moving diagonally. So because I've got this 4-frame pattern side to side and a 4-frame pattern up and down, now it's just going like this over and over again. So even though it's kind of neat, It's not working entirely. What might fix it, though, is if I bent the elbow on that arm at some pose. So we'll consider that. We'll think about that. Okay. So reaching back, passing, reaching forward, and passing again. So what I think is on this one, I actually want to move it up a frame. There we go. So now what I'm getting is this little arcing motion like this. I like that a bit more. We could move this significantly farther, by the way. It doesn't have to just move 1 pixel every time. At this point, I'm at the extreme forward position. This shoulder can go all the way over to here. We could even overlap parts of the face if we want to with this shoulder. And that's not uncommon, especially for something bulky. What I might do, I'm going to go ahead and leave it that far. You can see the animation's not working just yet, but I want something a little bit bolder for this guy because he's a big, big guy. I want to see if we can get some real rotation on him. So that would mean that's neutral, that's back. I like back being just a little bit. This neutral, though, I want to slide it forward at least 1 more frame to help out this motion. And then for this one, I'm going to slide this one forward significantly so that it eases this motion back. Okay, that's a lot of motion. It's probably too much motion. Okay, but if I change the shape of the drawings to accommodate for this, like allow this to not look like he's got a hunchback suddenly, overlap the face properly, we could probably make this work. I'm going to just leave it like that for a second and do the other arm so that you can see huge rotation and movement, and then maybe tone it down a bit instead. Okay. So let's do back arm. So the back arm needs to do the opposite of what the front arm was doing, at least left to right. So this one, it's reaching back, so it's got to reach forward. Let's give it 2 for this forward reach. Now we're back to a neutral. And now this is the one where the opposite one's reaching forward. I'm going to slide this back. And then now we're back to neutral. Let's see how that looks. There we go. So same sort of problem before that. This is going diagonal. So on the extreme position, which would be the farthest it moves, this one I could move it down 1, or this one I could move it up 1. And I think I'm going to move this one up 1. Don't ask me why, I just am. Okay, let's see. There we go. What do you guys think of that? Working better? Am I going too crazy on that yellow arm? It's pretty crazy, isn't it? So let's go and just tone that down a bit. So where's the most forward it ever goes? Is here. Let's move it back by 1. We'll leave that one alone. That one's fine. Then this one I'm going to move back by 1 also. Slide this one back even. Okay, let's try that. Let's see. Still not enough, huh? Trying to judge whether or not that's enough. I think that's not enough. But I still have not even tried to redraw this arm even a little bit. So before we change the position, let me try to redraw the arm. So up until this point, I've just been sliding things around because you can get away with a lot that way. But what I could do is attempt to bend this arm either forward or backward, which means that we don't need to move it so far in the first place. So let's find where are all these positions. So here's the forward position, middle, and here's the back position. So for the back position, I might want to take the skin part of the arm and shift it back and up a little bit, and then make this just a little bit more diagonal. So I'm going to take my selection tool, I'm going to grab all that, and I'm going to cut, move back, 1, 2, and up, and paste. So all the way over here is where I'm trying to move it to. Okay, let's grab my pencil. There we go. sample the darker color, which is the outline color, and let's see if we can get a sleeve in a new position. That would, I wonder if that'll work. I think that's not quite enough. We gotta go one more up. Kind of like this. Okay. So it's a pretty slight difference right now. I might need to go further, like try to actually angle this out more significantly. Let's try moving all of these out by a little. And then make this more vertical and bend it on this side a little bit. Let's try that. Raise this up a little bit. And I think even bring this in like that. So now we're starting to get some bend. Okay, interesting. Right now it's changing shape just on one frame. The other frames, the sleeve is kind of overlapping in the back. And now it's overlapping in the front. So for this forward-most position, this one, I'm going to try to bring the fist up and even add an angle somewhat. So we're going to say, like this much. Put a thumb up here somewhere. And try to get a diagonal fist like that. I'm trying to maintain the same kind of size, but it is a bit tough to do. So something like that. Get rid of all that. Fill this in. Okay, that doesn't really look like the right shape just yet. I think the thumb is too far forward. So let's go here for the thumb. Bring these down. Like that. Okay, let's see. So it's definitely not perfect, but it's at least doing something more interesting than just moving back and forth. Do you guys think I've improved it with this, or have I made it worse?
I think that it's worse.
It's worse? I think it might be.
It's on its way to being improved.
It's a tough call, though, right? It's a tough call. Sometimes with pixel art, less is more, as in just sliding things around, single pixels left and right. Sometimes that's better than what I've just attempted to do in redrawing it. Sometimes. It's hard to say, but what you might want to do if you're in this situation, save your file, keep working on it and save a different version so you can go back, because you might end up doing all this work and then decide, I don't like that. And so saving multiple versions of the same thing is a really good idea, which is probably what I would do normally. In this case, I'm going to just try to keep messing with it a little bit longer. For one thing, I'm going to change the angle of this sleeve entirely to be like down here somewhere. I think up here. Because I think that's something that I didn't like. There we go. I'm going to do something like that. Okay, so slight bend back. This one's traveling forward, so it's a bit straight. It's going to end up there. When this one travels backward, this needs to be bent somewhat or it looks crazy. So I'm going to try to get the fist in this kind of area right here. And I'm just going to draw that freehand circle to help me position it right away. And I think this will help soften the appearance a little bit. Let's fill that in. You see now why I'm using just big plain color fills. It's far easier to noodle with. Okay, so that did, like, I'm not perfecting anything, but that helped quite a bit because now the fist doesn't pop so much. It's just kind of sliding a little. We've only got one straight pose remaining on that arm, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. With that said, I think I maybe didn't improve it with this change. It might be too much. Really high up there. I'm comparing the height of the arm to the back, and I think it needs to be a little bit more equalized. Let's try that. With so much forward and backward motion, that up and down was a little confusing, but I don't think that's better either. I kind of liked it before. Let's undo that. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm kind of back to this now. So we'll just leave that as is for the moment. Then we would have to work on the back arm and do the same sort of thing. Let's see if we can get a little bit of floppiness in the hat while I'm just kind of going through this and displaying all of these different things that you can do. So let's go to the head, because this one should be easy. Either I'm going to pick the hat up off his head and bounce it up and down, or just flop the rim up and down. Those are the two kind of options here. So let's just try the rim because it's the simpler one. When his head moves down, there it goes. We would want to just delay a couple of pixels. How much? It's kind of up to you, but if you go farther than the rim just was, then that would be pretty odd. So probably just a couple pixels like that. Then when it goes down, you kind of do the same thing with pixels going the opposite way. So let's see, how does that look? Wacky. Way too wacky. Not really working. Okay? So down and up might not be a good choice. You might want to just go one direction. And if I could change the shape more gradually like I've done before, then it's going to work better. So here we've got body sinking down, body raising back up, body sinking down, body raising back up. If I could manage to bend this hat more gradually, then it would probably help a bit. So let's say here, if I want to sink the hat down just on this one frame, maybe. So let's cut, move, paste. Boom, boom. And then it goes and stays the same position. That's a bit odd. It also gives them this kind of limping cadence to his head, which is interesting to watch, and I kind of like the flopping action of the hat, but I'm not so sure that was a big help. Let's try this. I got a different idea. Okay, let's put his hat back, and we'll go back to that frame and get rid of the floppiness on the brim for the moment. Okay, so like this. I want to pop the hat off his head as his head moves down, like it floats in air for a second. I think that could be fun. So on frame 2 then, I'm going to take his hat and let's go up to 2 frames right here. Okay, so up. We might even have like some daylight in here depending on how big his head is, but so it's up by 2. Now on this one, okay, it just dropped by 1, and on this one it dropped by another 1, and on this one it rose by 1. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's alright. The head moving slightly differently from the the hat is a little bit funny. Yeah, it's possible. So on this one, how about I will move this up as well by 1, and this one I'll move by an additional 1, So now we're very low down. Pops off his head, starts to fall, catches up, rises again. Okay. Let's fill all that in to see. Well, it's cute. It's cute. I'm not sure if it's right for the animation, but it's just kind of fun to play with, and so, you know. When it rises way up here, I could have, let's get the right color. Both these pixels do that for a second, and now it's falling down. I just like doing this. So there's that. Probably not something that I should. Yeah, I know it's super silly, but I like it. I'm having fun, so that's the thing. Kind of making light of this really big, heavy, you know, what should be dangerous guy by doing silly things with his hat. I just love that. I'm gonna leave that because that's too much fun. So other options for things that you could be doing. Let me move this layer back up to the very top. It's just so we can look at it. Think about other things that you could do internally in the body as opposed to externally like I've been doing. We've got a jaw here. He could open and close his jaw a little bit, or he could grind his jaw left and right as this animation progresses. The belt buckle is a bit of detail on the body that can give an indication of rotation. So if all we do is slide the color of the belt buckle left and right on the belt, it can make it feel like his body is turning. Same thing with the neck hole. If we move the neck hole 1 pixel back and forth. You could also adjust his grip on the weapon, like open the fingers a little bit and close the fingers a little bit. Or the weapon could offset up and down as he's carrying it to give it some heft and weight and a little bit of life. All things that you can do. How many of them are good ideas? I don't know. Maybe not any of them, maybe only some of them. You have to try and see. Because if you don't try and see, well, you're never going to find out. And there's a lot of stuff that we haven't done at all with this character, like adjusting the wrinkle of his shirt or changing the profile of his torso at all to match the animation that I've produced here, or mess with the internal logic of his body, such as belt buckle and neck hole. Let's just do that belt buckle one real quick, because I think that's a pretty good bet that that one's going to look okay. So let's go back to his body real fast. Again, it's a little hard to see. There, well, now I can see. And let's just grab what I think is the belt buckle color, which is like this one. Take a look here. So it looks like it's 3 pixels away from the front edge on the neutral pose. This is not a neutral pose. This is closer to a neutral pose. So let's put it right there. And since that's hard to see with my colors, we'll make it brown for the moment. Okay, so there it is on the neutral. This one, this side is reaching forward, so I should slide this belt buckle to the left, middle, right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're never going to see that, it's behind an arm, but and then 1, 2, 3 here. Let's see if that works. Looks a little odd because we only see it on the left. It kind of looks like limping. Okay, so maybe not. So there. This one. I feel like this one might need to come over just one. Well, not really sure. It's not really doing what I thought it would do. Let's get rid of it entirely on this frame, just as if it's still underneath there, back here. That actually helped a bit. Yeah, that helped a little bit. I could also be offsetting only half the time, so it just scoots forward and scoots back. Let's try that. So if this is the neutral pose, let's just not do that one at all. And then it should step to the right for 2 frames. Well, now it looks like it's not moving at all. Dang. See? Now it looks like it's just not adjusting. So unfortunately, we got this big arm covering over, blocking it at just the right times where it makes it impossible to see. So we might need more poses to detail that out. Remember, I've only got 4 poses right now. I have not even tried to make a down or an up pose at all yet. And those are some of the most fundamental kinds of poses in a walk cycle. So I absolutely could add those. Okay. I've been noodling this enough though for now. Do you guys have any questions about this procedure? Confused about why I'm making the choices I'm doing, or why I'm changing things and then deciding, no, that's not very good and it should probably go back? See Salvo and Lilia typing. I'm glad you guys like the hat thing though, because I like the hat thing. I want them to have beady little eyes you only see when the hat flies off. Add detail color inside to make it look like a character. Yeah, that's what we do. Now I wouldn't do that until this motion is working though, right? So if I think that I need up and down poses, I do them with these solid colors first, because as soon as you add detail color, you're stuck and you need to have detail color for everything. It makes the process much, much slower, right? And that original illustration is not very complicated, but it's complicated enough to make it unpleasant to deal with just purely on its own, right? I suppose I could get away with just tan for the arms, dark blue for the sleeves and body, and this very dark blue for the pants, and just don't worry about fingers and hair and shadows. And that would probably still be workable, but just beware of doing that too early. So we need to separate the limbs into layers before the detail. I recommend it strongly. You could be doing this whole process on one layer just by drawing all the pixels or erasing them. You don't need to make layers at all, but I find the layers to be a lot easier to deal with. What did you do to pop out that preview window? So you'll always have a preview up in the right hand corner here, but if you hit this little arrow, open preview in pop-up, then you get one that when you resize it, it zooms it. And I find that that's a lot easier for me to deal with, especially since I've got a second monitor. I like to pop it out here. But you can also use these preview sizes up here, full, 1x preview size, or I think we can change the zoom. I thought we could change the zoom in right in here, but I'm not seeing it. Toggle the grid. Maybe not. Well, I'm not seeing any options for that here, but I thought we could change the size right in this little thing. But anyway, the pop-up button is really helpful. I like to have a nice big preview of what I'm looking at. Is there a save file for animation to upload the assignment? The save is an export GIF. So when you hit export, there's all these options, and GIF is the one that will loop, right? So loop repeatedly, GIF, download it. You can still do a scale multiplier if you want to, and I would recommend it. It makes it easier to view. I'm not sure if they're going to preview in Google Drive automatically. You know what? I think they do. Yeah, they do. These ones all played, so that one should play. So you just download your animated GIF and you're all set. You're ready to go. Okay. For your guys' sake, though, for saving your work, you should still be saving a .piskel file right? And I would even number them. So if you've got some version you think you might want to go back to, I'll just start with Wild West 01, save a Piskel, and then do some changes, Wild West 02, 03, 04, whatever.
Is there a reason why we don't save it for Google accounts?
Just because this is universal, you could take these anywhere you want.
Okay.
I mean, you could, yeah, you mean like save in browser?
No, I mean, because you can sign into your Google account and it will be saved onto, it'll be saved there.
In Piskel?
Yeah, so you see the sign in button near the creates, right?
Yeah.
Top.
Yeah, yeah.
Sign into your Google account and then save your sprites through that.
That's fine. Go for it. Yeah, I mean, the reason I do this is because I actually have this program downloaded to my machine. And so I like to have the files where I could just open them locally, or really just to have a file that I can back up anywhere. But however you want to deal with your file management is fine with me.
Alright, and so the assignment we have to do 2 passes and 2 accountability. Is that all that's required?
The minimum would just be a contact, 2 contacts and 2 passing positions. Because sometimes that's it. So it's just this one with wide legs and this one with thin legs. The other 2 are useful if you need more detail. And really in the example that I'm showing, I think he would benefit from those extra poses quite a bit. It would ease things and make it give me more time to move things from place to place, which increases the viewing experience. But not all characters are like that. And the example characters, these ones, they probably don't need it. Maybe the sword and sorcery guy needs it. Maybe the Castlevania guy. But other than that, these guys almost certainly don't need it. And you can see the difference if you look at these examples. Mega Man's a 3-frame run cycle. Mario's a 3-frame but could easily be 2. Toad is 2, right? And then if we look at the other examples, here is 8 frames of animation, which is very, very smooth. 6 frames and 4 frames. And they're all listed in this key by what kind of pose they are. So at 4, we've just got contact and passing. Bump, 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 bump. That's the bare minimum. That works, right? Then he's added in what he's calling pass and recoil. So in this one, he's just got passing, or sorry, high and recoil. So in this one, he's just got high. And you can see that one works spectacularly. In fact, I think I would stop there for this character. And then if you add in the recoil, which is the down pose, it's like catching your weight, pushing, leaping up, and then touching down again. Catching your weight, pushing, leaping up, catching your weight again. Okay? So 8 frames of animation for pixel art is probably too smooth most of the time, unless you've got a lot of detail. If you were doing some like Street Fighter character where they've got a lot of costume detail, 8 frames would be great. In fact, they can go much higher than that. But if you're doing a typical kind of retro platformer, 6 is all you're going to need most of the time. That make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so this one, in this one I have all 4, amazingly enough. I don't know why I did that. That's probably too much. In this one, I think I just have 4 for this guy's walk. It's a very clunky looking one, but it's also kind of charming in a way. Yeah, it's very restricted now I'm watching it. Alright, you guys. I mean, I could noodle this all afternoon, and maybe I will, and record it, but I don't want to subject you guys to that, like, mandatory. So if you don't have any other questions and you understand this process, that's going to be it for the lecture today. And then I'll probably do the same thing I did last time, where I do like a time lapse, or I just record myself doing the whole process. Okay?
Okay.
Any further questions? Then that's it. Have a good afternoon, you guys.